After 10 games, has Geno Smith done enough to say that he should be the long-term quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks? What's going on, everybody? Good morning. It's Victory Monday. Haven't had one of those in a while. Seahawks win, and it's a good one, right? It's a big one. It's the one that we needed to get our confidence back. And I'm not saying that we're good now. I'm not saying that like, oh, season is a success. We've done everything we wanted to do. Now we can just chill and whatever happens, happens. No. Ultimately, that win needs to be a stepping stone towards the Seahawks continuing to win going forward so they can actually get into the playoff race. But it was a win that saved the season in the sense that we are now emotionally invested in this. If we had lost that game, a lot of people would have emotionally disconnected from the team, not been into it, just wake me up for the draft, basically. So we're enjoying that. But before we get into talking at length about that game, because there's plenty to talk about with it, plenty of good stuff, plenty of fun stuff, I do want to lead off the week with a discussion that I think is one that we need to have because we're now 10 games into the season, and we've gotten a pretty decent-sized sample of the Ryan Grubb offense and how Geno Smith operates in that offense. So let's take this opportunity to not just talk about Geno Smith in the way that I've made plenty of videos talking about Geno Smith. I've made more than enough Geno Smith videos already this year, but those videos tend to just talk about whether or not is he playing good? Is he performing in this area? What does this say? What does that say? How good is Geno Smith? Is he okay? Is he good? Is he very good? Is he great? And then the conversation kind of just stops there. But it's a separate conversation to ask if Geno Smith should be the quarterback for the Seahawks after 2024. It's two different things, and this video is going to be about that second thing. Before I get into it, please like this video if you like it. Click the thumbs up button down below. Subscribe if you're new. Click the bell for notifications. Become a channel member for $2 a month. Those are the best ways to help support the channel. Okay, so Geno Smith could be a good quarterback and still not be the guy that the Seahawks should hitch their wagon onto for the next few years. Both those things can be true at the same time, which is why I say the conversations are different. I do admit that. There is a scenario where Geno Smith is a good or even a very good quarterback, and it still doesn't really make sense for him to be the quarterback in 2025 and beyond. I get that, and we will talk about that. But before we get to that, let's talk about Geno Smith, the player, so far this season. So this is his game log. These are his stats. His box score stats, which, I mean, you look at some of these numbers, they're just okay, right? Like yards per attempt average is okay. Only 11 touchdowns. You're not super excited about that. 11 interceptions is kind of close to the league lead. He's taken just over 3 sacks a game. Although, if you watch Seahawks games, you would know that only taking 3.2 sacks a game behind this offensive line is actually a tremendous accomplishment. You can see, his QB rating is okay, but nothing special. QBR is below average. So that stuff doesn't look so great. There is some stuff here that looks pretty stellar, though. Completions. If you want to go over to league leaders, Geno Smith is second in the league in completions. He's third in the league in attempts, and he's fourth in the league in passing yards. He's one of, I think, 3 players in the NFL to have gone over. No, I think it's 4 to have over 3,000 yards of total offense so far in 2024. And his completion percentage is still 7th. So there's also some stuff baked in there that is actually pretty strong. So you're looking at this box score, and it's giving you mixed messages, right? By the way, he's also doing more with his legs than he ever has before. He's actually the second lead rusher on the team ahead of Charbonnet now, which doesn't say anything positive about Charbonnet. I think it more accurately reflects. I think the thing that it's really not speaking positively about is the offensive line. But either way, he's actually on pace to do much more with his legs than he did in the previous 2 seasons he was starting for the Seahawks. But there's another way to look at this, right? Because the thing that really stands out to people like a sore thumb when they look at this stuff, when they look at Geno Smith numbers, 11 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. That's the thing that is getting stuck in people's head, and they can't stop thinking about that. Although I would say he's run for 2 touchdowns as well, right? And touchdowns are touchdowns, however you get them. So either way, that is still an intimidating number to work around, right? But where else can we go here? And the reason why I'm doing this is because I want people to understand what you might be losing if you don't have Geno Smith. Right? Go to Pro Football Focus, look at some of their graded throws, and I want to look at a few numbers here. So I'm going to have to walk you guys through what these mean. This first thing I want to look at is called BTT, which is a big time throw. And admittedly, big time throws can be somewhat of a arbitrary seeming criteria. If you pull up the key list on PFF, they have a big time throw as a pass with excellent ball location and timing, generally thrown further down the field and or into a tighter window. So there is some subjectivity here. I understand that, but it should be the same group of people grading the players, right? So there should at least be consistency in what makes a big time throw. This doesn't include anything from yesterday yet because the stats haven't updated, but if you sort by big time throws, Geno Smith is tied for second in the league with Aaron Rodgers behind only Josh Allen. So that's, I imagine after today, after the stats update, it's probably going to be more like Geno Smith's going to be at like 20 and Josh Allen's going to be up at like 23. So he averages about 2 big time throws a game, which is right near the league lead. And what about this other one right here? What is TWP? And this is the one that I really want people to focus in on here. TWP. Sort by TWP. TWP is a turnover-worthy play, a pass that has a high percentage chance to be intercepted or a poor job of taking care of the ball and fumbling. So these are basically all plays where the quarterback supposedly deserved to turn the ball over. This stat, Geno Smith is right near the middle of the league. He is 14th in turnover-worthy plays. And if you sort by turnover-worthy play percentage, and you go backwards, which is to say, you say who is at the near the bottom of this list, Geno Smith is almost in the top 10 for lowest turnover-worthy play percentage, 2.3%. And this is without yesterday, and he only had 1 turnover-worthy play yesterday. So after these numbers update, it's going to be up to about 11. But all these other numbers, or most of them, will update too, and Geno will probably be in approximately the same place compared to the rest of the league. So that should really dispel some narratives, right? Because Geno Smith's interception count has been high this year relative to most other quarterbacks in the league and also what he's done in the previous couple seasons. Well, this is painting a pretty clear picture because you will notice that generally speaking, most quarterbacks in the NFL have significantly more turnover-worthy plays than turnovers because sometimes you get away with it. The defender drops it. The defender slips. The defender falls down. He just doesn't get a good read on the ball and isn't able to come away with it. That kind of stuff. So right now you're seeing all these quarterbacks that have way more turnover-worthy plays than actual turnovers. All these guys at the top, it's pretty significant. And then you come to Geno Smith, and by the way, also this goes for Jordan Love as well. Shout out to you, Jordan Love. I feel for you. They have the same number of turnovers and turnover-worthy plays. Do you see what I'm getting at here? Geno Smith having this interception count is some pretty extreme bad luck. I know that sounds like a weak thing to say. I know people don't like to put things on luck and chance. I know people would like to believe that that kind of stuff can be overcome. But of the quarterbacks that have played a significant amount this season, him and Love are the only guys who have the same number of turnover-worthy plays and turnovers. And we've been watching Geno Smith all year, so we know that there are a lot of plays where he gets the turnover despite it not being a turnover-worthy play at all from him. Like when JSN has the ball bounce out of his hands and into the hands of the Ram 2 weeks ago. Like a play where Charbonnet bats the ball up at the goal line and it gets intercepted because it floats in the air and it gets caught. Plenty of plays like that so far this year. So what I am trying to get at here is that, yeah, that number's kind of intimidating. The interception number is alarming. I don't think the touchdown number should be alarming to anybody, because anybody who watches this team understands that the Seahawks run the ball into the end zone most of the time when they get into the red zone. So it's not like it's killing them on scoring. If you go and sort every team in the league by points per game, after yesterday's results, the Seahawks are currently 15th. After tonight, they might be 16th, depending on what Houston does. But they're about average. It's not like this low number of touchdown passes is reflective of low scoring output from the offense. It's basically all just circumstance right now. But the interceptions, some people see an alarming sign. I look at numbers like this and I go, it's not an alarming sign. He has about the same number of turnover-worthy plays as the average quarterback in this league right now. And the only reason why the turnover-worthy plays are so high is because he always has to do stuff. He's very close to leading the league in passing attempts. He's just a little bit behind BruÄ, I think. And when you include the fact that the defense overall has not been very good and the running game is basically non-existent, it all goes on his shoulders. So he is probably put in situations where he could produce a turnover-worthy play as much as any quarterback in the league. And yet, he keeps things at an about average, maybe even a little better than average level. So, number one, I look at that, and then I look at this, and then I go, this might be a little bit of an opportunity to not only get Geno Smith on a new deal, but get him on a deal that is cheaper than his actual value, because the interceptions by kind of random chance went up this year. So maybe the price went down a little bit. That's not a bad thing, because guess what? It's not like the number went down because Geno's playing worse. The number went down because he's, I'm sorry, I don't know how else to put it, quite unlucky. You have guys like Jalen Hurts, who have 14 turnover-worthy plays so far this year, and only 5 interceptions and a couple of fumbles. Like, that's how close we are to having Eagles fans everywhere screaming for Kenny Pickett, right? If he had an even normal number of these turnover-worthy plays actually turn into turnovers, he'd be done. It'd be a mess. He wouldn't last. So, not only that, not only just the part about maybe being able to get him a little bit cheaper than you should because of random chance, if you believe that a number like that affects the negotiations. But what this tells me in a broader sense is, this is something I lose if he isn't the quarterback next year. The ability to be second in the league in big-time throws and above average in big-time throw percentage, despite the fact that he's in an offense with no running game to help balance him out. You have a average, maybe even slightly below average number of turnover-worthy plays. And he's doing all this in an offense where the receivers are good, but the tight ends are just okay. the offensive line is atrocious, and the running game is mostly non-existent, and you're still doing all that, that's valuable. And that gets me to the second part of this conversation where I have to acknowledge that, yeah, there is an argument to be made that, well, Geno Smith's good, or maybe even Geno Smith is really good, but we are not in a position right now to support a really good quarterback, right? And right now we're not. At this moment, we are not in a position to support Geno. We can't run the ball. The offensive line is one of the worst in the league. We have good receivers and decent tight ends, and that's really about it. I mean, our running backs are good. They just can't do anything behind this line, right? And there is a school of thought that says, look, it's going to take us like 2 or 3 years to fix this offensive line. Geno Smith is not going to survive that long, so we need to move on because Geno's not going to be able to help us, right? That is at least arguable. I hear that argument and I go, okay, maybe. There's some reason to believe that. But here's what I would say about that part of it, which is why, and ultimately this is why I do come down on the side of, I think that the Seahawks should look to extend Geno Smith this offseason, and I think they should be comfortable with making him the quarterback for the next 2 or 3 years. When you have a quarterback who can play at a strong level, which Geno Smith can, for all the reasons I went through in this video today, the fact that he is currently holding the Seahawks at an about average offensive output, 23 points per game after 10 games, in this setup with this offensive line, is kind of a miracle. There are probably only 7, maybe 8 other quarterbacks in the league that could even try to do that. You put a guy like a Jared Goff behind this offensive line, he's never going to do anything. You put a guy like Tua behind this offensive line, unless you pair him with Mike McDaniel's all-time great play calling, maybe, you're not going to get anything. But you're getting something with Geno in a situation where you need a special quarterback to be able to produce much of anything right now. So you get what I'm getting at here. You don't want to lose that because that stuff is hard to find, right? We as Seahawks fans have been spoiled because over the last 25 years almost, the Seahawks have had a quarterback pipeline that has run mostly smoothly. Matt Hasselbeck, 2 bad years, Russell Wilson, Geno Smith. But then there are teams like Cleveland that still haven't been able to find a good quarterback in that entire period of time, basically. So if I believe this, and I do, then I want it back. And I'll figure out how to build around the guy later. I'll figure out how to do it quick enough to get him help. I'll find ways to fix the problems so that we can benefit from having this very good quarterback, even if it's just for a couple years. Keep your good players. Doesn't seem like that hard of a concept to me. But that's at least a compelling argument. That's the other side of this. I think that's the coherent argument for not keeping Geno around. There is certainly other arguments that exist out there. I don't think they hold any real water. But I still come out against it. I still come out and I look at it and I go, this guy could be competing for an all-pro spot. Probably not MVP, but he'd be closer to MVP than you would think, than you might expect, if we could just support him the way most other teams in the league can support their quarterback. All right, so that was about almost 20 minutes now on Geno Smith to start off your week. We're going to get to the regularly scheduled programming later, but I just wanted to spend some time on that because it is 2 different arguments. The argument of, is Geno Smith a good quarterback? I think the answer to that is very clearly yes. And then there's the, should we make Geno Smith the quarterback for the next 2-3 years for the Seahawks after this season? That's a little bit harder. All right, let me know what you guys think. I think it's a good time to do this, right? It's like right after a game where Geno Smith leads them down the field with less than 3 minutes, 80 yards to win the game with a touchdown. Not that he played great the whole game, though, and you do see some of the areas where what he can do is being hampered by this supporting cast. So you go through the gamut of emotions, but you got to start figuring out where you land. So see you guys later. Let me know what you think.